Hello, my little deep Frau Milches, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, and during the course of today, I'm going to start out the program with why this time of the year is always so completely full of shit. People can't find anything to discuss, so they make stuff up, and it makes for not very entertaining show preparation. But be that as it may, I do have something on my mind that I do want to talk about. But first, the bullshit, because the bullshit is what makes everyone pay attention. All right. If I wanted to say something absolutely detestable, that would get more attention than if I said something that was rational and thought provoking. I love this headline more than life itself. Jets will go all out to trade for Packers Aaron Rodgers. All righty then. Well, I'm sure they'll go all out. Woody Johnson will give up his wife, let her blow the entire Packers team. They will go all out to trade for Aaron Rodgers. But why? Why would Aaron Rodgers come to the New York Jets? Is this some kind of sorry fucking bullshit? Well, of course it is, because it's from NJ.com. This is what they got going in New Jersey, folks, besides women with big hair. They got this bullshit. I just throw my hooves up in the air and I say, well, there are lots of teams that would go all out to trade for God knows who, but they never go there. I don't even want to get into this article because it's not an article. It's just something that's stupid. There's more where this comes from, too. Headline: Kyrie Irving asks Nets for trade ahead of deadline. They're coming to take him away. What is it? And this is from Woj, so this is the truth. All right. And we know that the truth is always stranger than fiction with wackazoid Kyrie Irving, who wants to leave the Nets. And it's obvious why he leaves everywhere he goes. He's not the star. Don't you know? You know, I left Cleveland because LeBron wouldn't give me the keys to the car. Do you remember that? Hey, you know, I'm the one who's the righteous heir apparent to LeBron, and he won't fork it over to me. Kyrie, fuck you and your father in the same room at the same time by a large grizzly bear. Okay? What a nutcase. Then he gets to Boston. I'm here. It's like, go ahead. Here are the keys to the car. And the two young guys outplay him, and he pines and he goes, I don't like it here in Boston. It's like, well, I don't really blame him for that. But oh, I get this great opportunity. You see, the thing that's amazing, this crazy motherfucker will get as many chances as people will give him. So he lands in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant. He wouldn't give me the keys to the car. I mean, it's obvious the team goes on winning streaks when Durant is not hurt. They stayed in competition when Kyrie was doing his, I'm going to take a stand on COVID insanity. Then Durant gets hurt and they lose. Then Durant comes back and they win a bunch of games in a row and get themselves right back into the title fight. And then Durant goes down again. And now they've lost how many games in a row, or so many out of their last so many. I mean, it's Irving had previously requested to be signed and traded ahead of the season before deciding to opt into the final year of his 4-year max contract. Ay. Basically, what the Nets told him is you can leave the franchise this summer as a free agent. Just go. Don't go away mad, Kyrie. Just go away. They've lost 7 of their last 11 games since Kevin Durant went down with the MCL sprain. You know, this ain't Kyrie's team. Kyrie's never had a team. Kyrie's for nobody but Kyrie. And it's really, you know, and that's the other thing. I'll let Daktar go ahead and put up this. We have to resurrect the Lakers. The NBA is beside itself. They don't know what to do. Because now the one New York franchise, maybe I can put some, there we go. Give it a little extra depth. So the Nets will be gone. And then there's the Knicks, who are hanging on by the hairs of their chinny chin chins. But you can't count on Julius Randle now, can you? The NBA is looking around and saying, oh, man, we got to sell the Sixers again. We got to sell the Bucks again. The old man river. Wait, we'll do it again. That old man river. What do we want to see more of the Bucks for? I don't. Neither does the country, to be honest with you. We're trying to move on. But we can't move on because we have to wait for Luka to get traded to one of the big teams. Anyone who becomes the next star, it's delayed until they leave where they're at and go to one of the big teams. So, you know, who knows? Are we really interested in the Miami Heat? They don't even have a star. Jimmy Butler. God, Robert Guillaume was a butler. I don't know. They're freaking out. The NBA's just saying, you know, we got to do something. So let's let the Lakers bid on Kyrie. And nobody wants to sign Kyrie to a long-term anything because he'll get sick of playing there and he'll start pining saying, oh, I'm not the star. And that will be the end of that. But besides that stupidity, which is always stupidity this time of the year, there's the thing that's really on my mind. And that was yesterday's Cavalier game. And I have a pivotal problem with the NBA as I do the NFL. Not so much Major League Baseball because I could care less. But the NBA it has a history of allowing certain teams to have enforcers, all right? Enforcers. That's a really nice word for thugs. The Pistons had Ricky Mahorn, remember? Well, they're the bad boys. So, of course, they got Lambeer and they got Mahorn. And yes, Mahorn, he punches people in the balls. You know, hey, they're the bad boys. NBA champion, Detroit Pistons. It's like Draymond Green. Draymond Green's not even right in the head. Do you realize that he couldn't play anywhere else because he can't even hit the rim from 3? The guy is absolutely a one-dimensional player, and he kicks people in the balls when he's laying on the floor. He trips people. He elbows people in the back of the head. That's what he does. And nobody cares about Golden State anymore. So you don't even hear about his shenanigans anymore. But man, when they were center stage and they were all the rage in the NBA, You can't tell me that the purpose of Draymond Green was any different than the purpose was of Ricky Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer. We have enforcers. Then we have to put up with the Memphis fucking Grizzlies. I mean, come on. Dillon Brooks, are you going to sell this to me? They're the biggest whining bunch of babies I've ever seen in my life. They're trash talking fools. And they were 32-11. But they're losing they're losing and losing and losing now. And you know why? Because they're not any good. Well, we didn't have Steven Adams. You could have had Morticia Adams. You could have had John Adams. What difference would it make? Well, we got John Morant. And I went and I've been so complimentary of John Morant. And in the last program that I talked about him, I said he's kind of like the modern day Derrick Rose. I was right. He's a head case. He has no three-point shot. He can only drive to the basket. And he's got a bad fucking attitude. That makes him the new world Derrick Rose. So we have to sit there and watch. I mean, it was hard enough watching Donovan Mitchell try to play. I mean, they've got to sit him down and rest him, God, Rick, I missed it by that much. Right. I guess, what was it? 86, 69 to 99. Oh. This is all Get Smart talk. And if you're not familiar with the program, Rick May will understand my private message there. I don't know, man. Donovan Mitchell can't move the way he did. His shooting has gone to hell. I mean, he's got a groin injury, and that's tough. Anybody who's ever pulled a groin, and I don't mean somebody else's, it hurts and it restricts movement, and it hurts everything you do. Every directional move you make, that sucker hurts. And he's got to be taped up to the max. So he kind of looks like he's lumbering down the floor. It was difficult to watch. And I don't want him to get hurt because Donovan Mitchell is like our star player. But he wasn't doing any damage to the Grizzlies because he couldn't make anything. Then he goes to the basket and that happens. The famous, I'm going to throw my hand and flam my hand back and hit him in the nuts. And I've seen that move by Draymond Green and there's so many other dirty, filthy players that it makes me sick. But Dillon Brooks, fuck no. The Memphis Grizzlies, fuck no. They have instantly become my least favorite team in the NBA. Because they've accomplished nothing and they do nothing but talk about themselves and they make me puke. The game was a 5-point separation when they did that, and the little pussies got their asses kicked. All it did is it made the Cavaliers, who are a far more talented bunch, focused and angry. And that was the end of that, real quick. By now, everybody knows both players were ejected out of the game. Dillon Brooks for hitting Mitchell in the groin, and Mitchell for throwing the basketball at him. And look, I understand. You can't throw a ball at somebody. You can't do that, but you got to do something. And at that point, it was like, I'm glad they got Mitchell off the floor. He's hurt. I don't want him to get hurt worse. And they were trying to hurt him worse. And it wasn't just that. Dillon Brooks is just one. Little later in the game, somebody tried to rip Jetty Osmond's arm out of its socket, a la Kelly Olynyk and Kevin Love. Did you see that? Right under the basket. Jetty drove. The guy yanked his arm right out. These people start thinking that they have liberties that they can take. Oh, we had this great record, so we're allowed to be a filthy, dirty team. And you know something? Go back to your filthy, dirty city. For God's sakes, fuck Memphis. What is Memphis famous for now? I'm not talking about way back when. They think they're better than we are? The NBA just sees them as a mid-sized market. That's all they kept saying over and over again on TNT during the broadcast. Well, there's a battle of two mid-sized markets. You know what that's like? That's like telling a girl, well, you know, your girlfriend there wants to go out with me. Well, she's got a nice personality. Mid-market team. Not gonna get laid. That's what it means. Not going to become champions. Not going to be shown on national television very often. That's what it means. But the fact is, the Cavaliers may be one player away from being one of the best teams in the NBA. They don't care. They're still trying to get Kyrie to Los Angeles and somebody into New York. We pissed them off, man. We side-doored the Knicks. I don't know. The Knicks are asleep at the switch. They should have gotten Donovan Mitchell. How they didn't, I don't know. Donovan Mitchell was shocked that the Knicks didn't get him. Honest to God. How do you screw that up? Just ask the Knicks organization. They've screwed everything else up. So back to the Grizzlies. While all this is going on, there's Ja Morant with that shit-eating smile, you know? You suck. Ja Morant, you're fast, you're young, but you're not going to be fast and young forever. And you're not learning how to shoot the ball from the field. And you're going to become another Derrick Rose. You will become a has-been before your time, because if you're forced to go to the rim now against the guys who are so fucking big and strong, you're going to get waxed. And I can't wait. I can't wait until they carry you off the floor. You and your whole turd of a team. All you proved is that if you poke at the bear wakes up and eats you. You should start watching Cavs games, though, Daktar. You should. You've got legitimate young stars on this basketball team. And why Northeast Ohio? You know, the people who go to the games and go to the Rocket Fieldhouse, these people know. You know, young stardom when you see it. The question is, can we keep this group of young players together and somehow in the next 2 to 3 years surround them with the kind of supporting cast that will really allow for a deep playoff run? And I don't know whether they're going to be able to do that or not. And there's a lot of reasons why not and why it's so difficult. The fact that Donovan Mitchell is a Cavalier is because the front office got rid of all kinds of assets in the future. They gave away everything they had. So now we're at the trade deadline and we're just kind of. And then last night, the thing that really opened my eyes is like, I follow the NBA injury list real close. Karis LeVert wasn't even on the injured list, wasn't even questionable, wasn't probable. He was just playing, then all of a sudden out. He went from a non-status, I'm going to play because there's nothing wrong with him, to this weak sauce explanation. Well, he did something to a calf muscle. Yeah, something like that. They could trade him. I mean, who's on the block. If you're trading block, one, and we're waiting for Kevin Love to get better for those back spasms to go away, and he's cleared to play, but coach's decision, DNP. For Kevin Love, 2 games in a row. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And I don't want to see it happen. Kevin Love has been a good player for the Cavaliers, but a great player for the Cavaliers. He was great last year. His body is betraying him. He wants to stay in Cleveland. Okay. You've invoked his name, Bronk. Now, it's me, Joe Banner. Some of you don't remember. What's that smell? Smells like teen spirit. I'm cracking myself up. Karis LeVert's absence is because he hurt calf muscle. This is a face you can trust. You got to be kidding me. There are 2 men that a team might have interest in if Kevin Love got himself healthy and his thumb, which has screwed up his shot, and just to be able to come in off the bench and shoot threes, he could do a good job. All right. So that's that. Karis LeVert just doesn't fit. Karis LeVert's a guy. He wants to be a guy who has the ball in his hands all the time and create, but he's just not a good enough shooter. And the Cavaliers already have 2 guys in Donovan Mitchell and in, for God's sakes, Darius Garland, who can create with the ball in their hands. What they don't have is somebody to stand camped in a corner and drain threes. And Dean Wade, since he's come back, ain't getting the job done. Isaac Okoro occasionally, but they don't trust him. Jetty Osman, Donnie Osman, Marie Osman, and his brothers. Sometimes, but we don't have a guy who comes off the bench and consistently knocks down threes. We don't have a starter who can consistently knock down threes, and we need that. We need that really bad. So LeVert, right off the bat, he can't dominate the ball, and he's not a good 3-point shooter. And he's not a good spot-up shooter. Even though he's wide open, he still makes the same percentage that he did when he was playing with the Nets back moons ago. But he is a player who will continue to play in the NBA. The real question about Kevin Love is whether he's really going to land anywhere or whether he's done. But Karis LeVert is young enough that he's going to continue to play in the league, and he's a guy who will end up in Sacramento. Believe me, they all end up in Sacramento. And he'll put up points as a volume shooter on a losing team. But it just doesn't work. He's not a fit, and he never was a fit for the Cavaliers. LeVert tries hard on defense, Bronk. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's because of disinterest, but he has had leg and ankle problems all of his career, and it's not hard to figure out. He's not on the balls of his feet. I've never seen anyone he runs like a duck. He's got like flat feet. And if he plants the wrong way, the ankle goes over. And, he can play passing lanes. He's got long arms. But as a man-to-man defender, not at all good. And he's a disaster when he tries to close out on three-point shooters. The guy gives up more four-point plays than I've ever seen in my life. Not only does he get there late because his spacing is bad, but he gives the guy a clean look and then he whacks him. I don't get it. He has bailed out so many three-point shots this year alone. It's nauseating. And by handling the ball too much, he turns it over too much. So he's on the trading block. Don't let the organization try to convince you of anything else. The problem is what you can get for him, and you're going to get another Karis LeVert. You're going to get somebody who's not consistent. And therein lies the problem. I mean, it's pretty bad when people are throwing names around like Cam Reddish. It's like, no. Topaz makes an appearance. No. He's vehement about Cam Reddish. No. Okay. But I mean, if I named you the other names, you wouldn't be real thrilled either. Hardaway Jr. doesn't give me a Hardaway. I mean, he can stand still and shoot, but he's not a guy who can do anything else. He won't play any defense, and he won't move without the ball. He can stand in a corner and shoot. And you got Dougie McBuckets and, all of that. I mean, I don't, he again can shoot threes, but you're not going to get anything else. So what we're really kind of looking for, it turns out, I thought we'd be looking for a bench three-point shooter like Kevin Love was last year. No, we're looking for a starter. We're looking for a guy who will take over Isaac Okoro's starting position and knock down threes. Isaac will come off the bench and give us speed, give us athleticism on the floor. But they'll become the running team, Jetty Osman will run in one direction. He'll run out of the building, go out in the naked cold outside of the arena. I don't know. There's not a great answer to this right now. But there was something really good for me in yesterday's game, besides that we kicked Memphis's ass. I do like that Evan Mobley is getting more aggressive and assertive offensively, because we need that. He's got to go strong to the basket. And he's learning slowly but surely how to be outside of the paint, run into the paint, and be targeted. The team is finally paying attention to him and getting the ball in his hands when he's kind of zipping across the lane and letting his natural athleticism guide him to the basket, instead of giving him the ball with his back turned to the basket where he has to put the ball on the floor. He's not an effective dribbler, that's for sure. Now, him throwing up threes, I'm not quite ready for that yet. And I think the Cavaliers shoot far too many threes that don't go in, because the people taking them are not really good shooters. So, but the one thing that really made me happy was Ricky Rubio. I mean, Rubio was such a good player for us last year, then the horrible knee ACL tear. And honest to God, he's looked like shit since he came back. And I understand it. Anybody who's had, I had a knee replacement, but anybody who's gone through that kind of, huge surgery. And you say, oh, but that's nothing compared to an ACL, Mr. Moohead. And it's like, well, uh, when you find out that you get a knee replacement and the cellular structure in your knee doesn't heal until 2 years later, then you know. Now, I was playing tennis after 6 months as far as my knee replacement, and it's held up great. I don't play anymore because of my back. But the bottom line is, you know, it takes time because you're scared. And I know that Ricky Rubio at 32 years of age isn't going to maybe heal as quickly as a younger player. And his game is predicated on constant motion, moving around, and being able to get around players into the paint and dish off. He's not a big scorer, he's not a big offensive threat. The thing I liked about him last year, he's not a great percentage shooter, but he knows when it's his time to take the shot. And as a veteran, he does have some of that take charge in him that a second unit really needs, kind of the leader of the second brigade. But we didn't see any of that since his comeback until last night. If you watch the game, it was like it all changed in the blink of an eye. He got the ball and he was dribbling over the midcourt line. He deked a guy and blew by two guys into the paint, dished it off, slam dunk. And I'm like, well. It's like somebody just figured out for whatever reason that knee holds up when he cuts. And then you saw like the levee breaking. At that point, I mean, I don't think that Ricky Rubio would talk about this to the press, but I know that when he did that, he was like, whoa, that felt normal. That didn't hurt. I can do this again. And then he started making 3-point shots. When he was able to drive around people and open up the court for other players, they backed off him and said, we dare you to shoot during a time when we needed it after the acts of violence by Dillon Brooks. That just changed everything in the game. Rubio was throwing in threes, man. I was like, oh my God. So I think that a backup guard minutes, Neto is not going to get the time anymore. It's going to be Rubio. Rubio was playing 18, 20 minutes in yesterday's game. He's getting his minutes up and he's feeling better about himself. And I think that's what I take away this game. And also that the Cavaliers defensively are a good basketball team when we lose these frustratingly close games because we don't get into our offensive sets and we're not as aggressive as we should be. We're young, we're inexperienced, team hasn't been together. They're learning to play with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell wants to be a hero too, because let's face it, that's what he was brought to Cleveland, to be the superstar, so that the organization might be able to take the next leap up. That's what he is. But the team has to adjust the personnel. Darius Garland was fantastic last night. And I know that all-star snub must have been a big part of it. Without a doubt. He took that pretty hard from what I understand. And he took it out on the Grizzlies. So that's all exciting stuff. And I enjoyed, listening to Donovan Mitchell telling the world that Dillon Brooks is a dirty player and that the team has no regard for him, and they really have no regard for the Grizzlies. It also showed me something else, that what is wrong with the Cavaliers is an experience issue. What's wrong with the Cavaliers is that they haven't been there and done that. They tend to get a little unraveled mentally at the end of games, but you found out last night Physical cowardice and backing down isn't one of those things. And that's something that a young team like this needs to see. And when Donovan Mitchell walked off the floor and waved goodbye to the fans, he didn't make himself the center of attention for being ejected. He just walked off the court and left the team out there to fester and to be pissed off and to step up and perform. And that was the best part of the game, because it could have gone the other way. If the team backed down and they just cowered down, then it would have been obvious that the 5-point lead would have disappeared. We would have been 8 down by the time you turned around, and it would have been the end of the road for the Cavaliers that night. But instead, the exact opposite happened. We built the lead back up to double figures and then blew the door off them. And I think a lot of that is great for young players to realize that without Donovan Mitchell, we can still do that. We can play good defense. We can play good transition offense, get steals, get turnovers. We can get that home crowd rocking, and Donovan's not even on the floor. He's just back getting unwrapped in his groin muscle. That is the best news to come out of the entire evening. We don't have, as the Cavaliers said afterwards, we're not a bunch of sissies, and I can guarantee you there's truth in that. They're going to go out, they're going to play their game. They just need to learn to play that game through the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. They have to find the will and the discipline to play a certain way together rather than go to this individual thing, one guy trying to play hero ball. They got to play as a group. And we'll see if JB can get that to happen. There are questions about that. As far as other stuff going on, Derek Carr is not extending his contract trigger date. You could understand that Derek Carr is not happy with the Raiders in Las Vegas. He's not happy. And he's not going to give them any more time to mull it over. So he's going to be gone. This whole thing about the arrest warrant on a menacing charge for Joe Mixon that was then seemingly rescinded, dismissed is the technical term. The complaint was filed in Hamilton County in Ohio. According to the warrant, Mixon allegedly pointed a gun at an individual on January the 21st and said the person should be popped in the face. Big dogs of the East, Joe Mixon. Now, he's not charged with anything. He had problems when he was in college. I think maybe even in his first year in the NFL. But since then, he's kept his nose clean. If he pointed a gun at somebody's face, whether the gun was loaded, it wasn't loaded, is 100 times worse than what Deshaun Watson did. Okay. There's a lot of weird behavior amongst NFL players off the field. Believe me. But of all people, it had to be Mixon. He of the 19 yards and the big loss in the postseason this year. But, right now, it's not an issue. We'll see if it becomes an issue. I don't know if there's really much more for me to talk about today, to be honest. I got some stories lined up here, but I don't want to start talking about the NFL draft. I'm not going to do that right now. And then the other story that was weird, and I don't talk about women's basketball, and it's no rap against women's basketball. It's a huge moneymaker for the university. Wait, I got something in my eye. But according to Duke University's coach, they made a mistake and used a men's basketball in the first half of a game against Florida State that Duke lost 70-57 in Tallahassee. Now, if you would have said to me, what's the difference between men's and women's basketball, I would start citing just the visual presentation, the fact that nobody's watching, the fact that the game is predominantly played below the rim, and that it is nowhere near the caliber of men's basketball, and it puts me to sleep. But if you would have said, do you know that the basketball's different? And it's like, I really didn't. But the women's basketball is an inch smaller than the men's and is 2 ounces lighter. Now, you say 2 ounces, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. As a tennis player, I can tell you the difference between an 11-ounce tennis racket and a 13-ounce tennis racket, because I used to use a 13. Actually, it was a little bit more, 13.2 ounces. And when they say, what kind of racket are you using there? And I'd hand it to them, it would almost fall out of their hand, because they were using at the time 9.8, 10.2 ounce rackets. That amount of weight makes a huge difference. And it made a huge difference in the game because neither team could shoot the goddamn ball. Players were complaining that the ball didn't feel right. Well, that's why. But then you ask yourself, if we don't want to perpetuate the myth of the weaker sex, why can't they use a regular basketball? Because their hands aren't as big. I don't want people palming, So what? So if a woman could palm a basketball, what does it mean? If Brittany Griner could palm a basketball that's an inch smaller, well, good for her. It ain't a fucking basketball. The men's and women's volleyball, same fucking ball. I don't know. I don't get it. That just perpetuates this myth. You don't think women could use the men's basketball? I don't know. At any rate, I guess that's all I have to say today, except that I'm thrilled that the Cavaliers won. And we're sitting now at 32-22. And, we're playing in between, depending on what happens, a 46-50 win season. If we could have a 50 win season, we're going to get into the main draw of the playoff. We're not going to have to play our way in. But, I start feeling nervous if there's a 4 in front of that. Cavaliers have to hit a winning streak here because we've been winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. 8-8 in the month of January ain't good enough. That's exactly right. I'm not even going to utter his name. No. Except that he's retired. And I'm glad. And I think Aaron Rodgers should do the same thing. Or let him go to the Jets. Make it so. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Hey, I don't always fill the hour, although usually I do. But this time of the year, it's just Deadsville. I'll talk about whatever the fuck I feel like talking about. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back again on Monday, and hopefully there's a little bit more to chat about. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.